everybody. Welcome to A Valid Answer on kerncast.com. I'm Scott.
And I'm Marshall.
And we are not in our normal location. If you'll notice, we are outside on a remote location, a secret remote location. It's not that secret. It's actually my backyard, which is exactly how far from your house, apparently?
Maybe 50 yards as the crow flies.
Yeah, just like literally you're probably like 2 streets that way.
Yeah.
And it takes you like a little bit longer because you got to go out and around and come back around this way. But again, he's not going to call it this, but there's an entire God story behind behind that, in that how we just keep end up in each other's lives and moving near the same place. And it is kind
of crazy. There have been a lot of coincidences. I'll give you that.
Coincidences,
but when you're about the same age and you go to the same school and you're from the same neighborhood and you live in the same small
because that happens to so many
city,
of us,
right?
How many people do we go to school with, and they all live right here in this little neighborhood, right?
Okay, so if this is proof of something divine, then how do you know if is it God or is it Allah or
well, hold on, I think that was a different episode.
Okay.
No, today it's Father's Day. If you're watching this in the future, this is the past for you, and this is Father's Day, and I'm like, you know what? Instead of going in, let's bring all the equipment and set everything up in my backyard and have a little Father's Day barbecue. You can see the grill right behind me. In fact, I'm going to step off in just a moment to get the coals ready. Why don't you tell everybody what we're talking about, and I'll try to shout back to the microphone while this is happening. It's going to be a very different experience today.
That's right. Scott is grilling and barbecuing, and so actually we're going to debate whether or not what he's doing is actually barbecue. No, I'm kidding. That's actually a pretty intense debate out there, like, the Memphis or all the different styles of barbecue, right? But actually today we do have kind of a serious topic. We're talking about gender roles and whether or not...
Which I thought would be kind of appropriate on Father's Day.
A
day that's specifically set aside for a certain gender. I thought, well, hey, it's kind of in the news. Let's talk about gender roles.
Right. Well, what happens if there is no father? What happens if there's just a single parent? What happens if there's no mom? What happens if there's 2 moms or 2 dads or some other odd arrangement? And there are many different kinds of arrangements of parents out there. I mean, there are some kids who technically have like 3 parents, and in fact they literally have a 3-parent child, or at least an embryo that they've created. I don't know if a person has actually given birth to a 3-parent baby yet, but in England, in the UK, last year they authorized the use of DNA from 3 people to create a child, and the purpose is to eliminate genetic diseases. So basically they use gene editing, so you have a mom and a dad and you have a defective gene, and you use gene editing from a third person or something like that. And
so is this something new? Like, has there been in the past like moratoriums on genetic altering with human beings?
Yes. Yeah, it's very, very
and now this is becoming
tightly regulated. But again, the purpose, though, isn't to create a 3-parent child. The purpose is to correct for genetic disorder.
But the side effect is that it'll be a child that has genes from 3 different people.
Parents. But hey, guess what, folks? We have genes from fish inside of us.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of genes in common with a lot of other critters.
And we are both wearing genes right now. Sorry.
So I think being a parent is not really so much about genes, at least for us humans. On a physical level, it certainly is, but it's really more about being a parent, being there in a kid's life and having love for that kid, and taking care of that kid and raising that kid to be a happy, healthy, productive human adult.
Now, my question is are there benefits to having a mother and a father in a home? That's the first question. Is there objectifiable benefits? Because I believe there have been studies on this. Is there objectifiable benefits for having a mother and a father in a home? What do you think?
Yeah. The first one that comes to mind is money. So if you have a mom and a dad, and if they're both employed, or even if one of them is employed and the other one is home raising the kid, that's a benefit.
Well, okay, I'm asking specifically a male and a female. again, we're talking
because
about
you can
gender
have
roles,
these same benefits
not just income,
with two moms or two dads.
right? That benefit you can. I'm saying,
Mhm.
is there a benefit for having a mother and a father, the mother and the father of the child? Is there a benefit? Have there been studies on that? And is there a benefit for having a mother and a father, outside of which one is working, or if both are working? We're not talking economic. Again, I'm talking the gender roles, not the economic roles, not the breadwinner, but gender roles. Is there an effect of children growing up in a home where there is a mother and a father? Is there a positive effect for that? And is there a positive effect that outweighs other effects, other not effects? Is there a positive effect in that definition of a family that is better than other definitions of a family?
The answer is I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I researched what happens when you have two dads or two moms.
Mm-hmm.
That was the scope of my research. You being sort of the more traditional fellow here at the table, I would expect that you would have something to say about men and women, heterosexual parenting families.
Mm-hmm. I know that that there's a difference. Okay, let's go further back. Is there a difference between men and women
Absolutely, of course.
in this society? Is this society trying to eliminate the difference between men and women, or minimize or not recognize the difference between men and women? Is it politically incorrect in this society right now to say there's a difference between a man and a woman?
Well, first of all, it's a factual statement, so that there's obviously differences in biology and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of depends on what you mean. If you're going to tell me that there are jobs that are only for men or jobs that are only for women, then I'm probably going to argue with you on that.
Because I would say that there are exceptions to every rule. I believe I would not say there are jobs that are only for men and jobs that are only for women, because I believe that there are, again, exceptions, rarities, but we should make allowances for exceptions. Let's just say, firefighting, going into a burning building and carrying a person out. You kind of need a certain stature to be able to physically lift a 200-pound person on your shoulders and carry them down 5 flights of stairs. Like, there's a certain physical stature that has to happen. That physical stature is typically not attained by the average woman. Typically. But I would not ever say, well, then women cannot be firefighters, because you're going to have the atypical person who, here's this woman bodybuilder who can do it, and that person should not be limited. But so that's not exactly what I'm talking about. But I'm saying, in a general sense, is there are there differences between men and women, and should these differences be minimized or celebrated? I'm going to put the meat on the grill. I want to hear what you say. What your opinion is: should we be minimizing the difference between men and women and saying, let's not look at the differences and let's not point those out, or should we be celebrating the differences between men and women? What do you think?
Well, if I'm in a burning building, I really don't care who saves me, if you're white, black, polka dot, male, female, straight, gay, or some other gender, what have you. If you are carrying me out on your back of a burning building, I am going to love you and be in your debt absolutely forever.
I only care that you are capable.
So to the extent that a person is capable of doing a job, then gender is kind of irrelevant, in my opinion. And that includes a parenting job as well. As far as celebrating differences, I'm okay with celebrating differences. It's okay to celebrate women and being female and womanhood. It's also okay to celebrate being man and being masculine and being a dad. But if by these differences, if you're going to use these differences as a way to oppress people and to tell people, no, I'm going to close the door because of your anatomy or because of some other reason that's really quite arbitrary, then I don't think that should be celebrated. I have a real issue with that.
Yeah.
But I don't think you represent that viewpoint either, Scott.
No.
So
that's not what I'm trying
it's
to
okay
get
to
at.
celebrate dads. It's okay to celebrate moms. It's okay to celebrate men in society. It's okay to celebrate women. And it's especially important, I think, to celebrate women because traditionally and historically, women have been a disenfranchised class of the human population. So it's even more important, in my opinion, to celebrate women than even men, because men, let's face it, men have been celebrated since the beginning of time. Women definitely deserve their share of the spotlight. But I don't think that gender differences in and of themselves should be used as an excuse to put someone down or to keep someone out of an opportunity.
I'm just trying to find out, it feels to me, and maybe you feel differently, maybe you're not experiencing it different. It feels to me that our society is really trying to push the idea that there is not a difference between men and women, that they're interchangeable.
Can you give me an example?
The whole idea of gender fluidity, that you can choose your gender.
What do you mean by choose?
People say, I now identify as a woman, even though they were born a man.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've got to tell you,
that's
Scott.
not scientifically or medically sane.
Can you tell me when you chose to identify as a heterosexual male? Can you tell me that
That's not
moment?
what I'm talking about.
But
No, that's not what I'm talking about.
But I want to ask this question. Was there a moment in your life where you said, you know what, I identify as a heterosexual male? Did that moment
not that
ever
I
happen
remember,
to you?
No.
No. And it didn't happen for me either.
I don't remember that, no.
And I think it happens with a lot of people that you don't...
Because it's normal.
You don't choose... No, well... People who are gay, from my understanding, do not have this moment where they actually make a choice.
Hold on. I'm not talking about homosexuality. I'm not talking about sexual preference. I'm talking about people who say they are actually, they're changing their gender. That they're saying, I was born a man, but I should have been born a woman, so now I'm going to take medication and have surgeries to have parts of me removed so that I can be a woman.
So Caitlyn Jenner, Chelsea Manning,
yes,
right, who were previously...
Gender fluidity, the idea... In any other way, if I suddenly say, I want to choose to be an armless person, I want to find a doctor to cut off my arm so I can be an amputee for no health reason whatsoever, wouldn't that be considered mentally unstable to want to do that?
Well,
why is it different than, okay, well, you want to change your gender, you want to cut off your sexual parts, you want to start taking hormones and all these kind of things that are going to affect you. Why is that not seen as the insanity that it is?
Well,
what do you feel about gender fluidity? People who say, I'm going to choose what gender I am, and I'm going to have medical and surgical things done to me to do that.
I'm not sure you can call it insanity, because I don't know if it's been classified.
Delusional?
I don't know how it's been classified.
Is it a mental illness to want to?
There is a book.
Some of your body parts.
There is a catalog. It's a book. It's a catalog in psychology, and it's like the DSMV or something like that. And it's like on its 4th or 5th iteration, maybe even more.
I've heard about that.
But there is literally a manual out there that classifies all of the mental illnesses and psychological issues.
Was this
that have been
classified as a mental illness before?
I don't care about before, because things change. I'm very interested in whether or not.
Huh?
I'm interested in whether or, because remember, psychology is a field that's still developing. It's
I'm not
only
talking about psychology.
something that's been practiced.
I'm not talking about psychology.
Right, but
I'm talking about biology. Biology can
psychology
change my opinion?
is part of biology. Psychology is part.
Biology can change by opinion.
You're not going to change DNA by opinion, but I want to talk to you about the mental side of this. And first of all, I don't know that being gender fluid or feeling that you're a different gender has been classified as a mental illness. So I don't want to call it a mental illness, because certainly I don't know if technically it's recognized as such, and I don't think it is. I could be wrong about that.
Do you think it's normal? Do you, Marshall, think it's normal?
It's
because I have no problem saying that I feel that gender fluidity is not normal. It is obviously not normal to be born one gender and then to say I'm going to surgically change my gender.
It's
I
certainly
don't feel
uncommon.
That's normal.
It's certainly
it's
uncommon.
Not normal. So I'm asking you, do you think that's normal behavior, or do you think that's abnormal behavior?
We live in a very heteronormative culture, and so
because biology points to that.
Right.
Biology points to that.
But gender fluidity does exist in nature. and it exists in other organisms, not
right,
just
and it's
humans.
abnormal.
No, it's not. It's actually normal.
It's
Look at the clownfish, right? Finding Nemo. If there's no female clownfish, then the dad clownfish becomes a female and produces offspring. So it's a thing that happens in nature. Why it happens in humans, I'm not sure if we fully understand. But I don't necessarily want to call it a mental illness, because just because a person has a gender identity issue doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong with them. It could be that there's something wrong with our society, that our society is so heteronormative, oppressively heteronormative, that we construe this as an illness and as abnormal, when in fact it may be 100% perfectly natural in the human species.
When you say that like the clownfish and a few other things, we watch Jurassic Park, and they can, the whatever frog can, all it can,
There are several species that can do that. Yeah, it's remarkable.
That can do that. They don't need surgery to do it. Their bodies are built that way. Human bodies are not built that way, so it is not normal for the human body to change sex. It is not biologically normal. If it were biologically normal, then in a place where it needed to, the human body would automatically change. So your argument, your comparison doesn't hold up, because those species actually have a natural built-in mechanism that does that. Human beings do not have that natural built-in mechanism. We mentally choose to do something, and then ask doctors to mutilate our bodies to attain what's wrong with our brain. So,
well, I don't like the idea that you keep saying something is wrong with the brain. The brain is certainly wired differently than it is in my case, in your case.
Abnormal.
I'm okay with saying different. Can
you say abnormal?
No, I don't want to do that, because I don't want to participate in heteronormative oppression.
Hold on. Why can't you say, because is abnormal a medical determination? Is abnormal an opinion, or is abnormal an actual diagnosis?
I am not a doctor, so I can't.
I think you're just trying to avoid it.
I'm not going to say abnormal.
I want a valid answer.
And my valid answer is this: the reason why I am not saying abnormal,
because you're afraid to.
No, because I do not wish to participate in heteronormative oppression of people who are different than me in terms of their mental perception of their own gender.
So, there's 3 comments. Oh, thank you. Can you see them on there? Well, I know that Steve said yes. I'm not quite sure what you were referencing on there, other than Steve, thank you for joining us and commenting on there. I believe maybe you were asking if there was a difference between men and women.
I can't view it without opening it up, and I don't want to blast the sound, but I have the sound. Here we go.
Gotcha.
Okay, so hi, Steve. Steve is saying yes to an earlier question.
Yeah.
And he's saying, and we have a comment here from Josh. To Scott's earlier point, my wife's cousin is indeed a female Fire Department of New York officer. Thank you.
Cool.
And she could absolutely carry you out of a burning building.
Absolutely.
And that's awesome.
Yes. And that's why I want to say, I don't know why I don't see that on here. So.
And then Steve says there is now a movement that is saying it's not a doctor's right to announce a newborn's gender according to what genitalia they are born with, and I believe I've heard of that. So I think Steve is speaking from fact.
What kind of craziness are we coming to where biology, born with certain body parts, born with certain chromosomes, born this way, and a doctor is being told you cannot say what this gender is.
Or the doctors are themselves saying, I don't want to get into this, because there is a difference between what body parts you have and how your brain functions. You can have certain body parts and your brain points the opposite direction.
Okay.
And that's, we don't know why that is exactly.
Okay.
They are researching it quite actively.
But it doesn't make a difference on who you are. I understand that.
Yes,
it is.
No, you can. Who you are is in your brain. It's not down there. It's up here. This is who I am.
I'm not just talking about down there. I'm saying in your whole body, every cell is affected. Every cell is affected by the X and Y chromosomes. Every cell is affected. So your body is a boy or your body is a girl.
but your brain is part of your body.
Right, and your brain,
And your brain can be the opposite.
Your brain is a boy
So
or a girl.
down there, you can be an arrow, and your brain can be a cross. Right?
Your whole body, all of the cells in your body were affected by the X and Y chromosomes. So your brain is still a boy. If your
I understand
your
what
brain
you're
is a
saying,
boy.
Scott.
So,
I understand
but
what you're saying.
how the signals fire is going to be different. I understand that.
Okay.
And that's going to be, and I believe that's what can affect your choices. But you are still what you are born. You choose this preference. Maybe you have a sexual preference that you're choosing, and I'm going to concede that point right now in this argument. Maybe you have a sexual preference that you're choosing, but you are still what you were when you were born. Medically, biologically, you are this. You can't say, "Well, I should have been born a girl. I should have been born
I
a
don't
boy."
think
You were
people
born what
choose.
you were born.
I don't think people actually consciously choose to be straight or gay or whatever else.
Okay, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to concede that point, and I said
Okay,
it, I
okay,
said it in
fair
the
enough.
wrong way. I'm not trying to
We're
argue
good.
that point, and I said that in the wrong way. But I'm just saying the way you swing. There we go. I'm seeing this here.
Are you able to see it? So Steve is calling me out here. He says, "I feel like a unicorn today for Father's Day, so the masses can't say I am not a unicorn." Steve, you be the greatest, most glorious unicorn you want to be. You
So
go
you're
with
saying
your
he's
bad
fine.
self.
You're saying that's not abnormal.
I'm not. I don't think
If
Steve is being serious that he's a
but
unicorn.
what if he was? What if he says, "I really think I was born a unicorn"?
I've
And
never
he
known of
wants
a person
to act
to
out
be
a
a
unicorn.
unicorn.
He wants a horn.
Wants
He wants a horn
a
medically
horn.
added onto there, and he wants hooves in place of his hands.
And we do have this, right? There are people who go through these extreme, what they call body modifications, where they get their face tattooed and they have stainless steel put into their body.
Is that an indication?
That's your choice.
Is that an indication?
Freedom
of some sort
means
Hold on.
letting others do things you don't like, and if that means
like
tattooing your face
like we were
or
talking about
wearing a
last
unicorn horn,
No,
that's
not
freedom.
wearing
We
one.
live in a free society.
I understand that, but at what point is that a flag for mental instability? At what point is society responsible to say that is mental instability? Now I'm opening a wide door here because that argument can also be made towards me because you have described me as delusional. Now I don't mean that personally. You have described my belief in God and that I hear God as delusional.
I have.
Yes, and so
I'm surrounded by crazies and nut jobs.
yeah. So then that comes down to could my argument be used against me to say, well, then now that shows to some sort of mental instability? Is there a point where society should step in and say this is an indication of mental instability that needs to be addressed? And is someone saying that they are a different gender and having medical surgeries done to mutilate their body an indication of mental instability?
I'm certain, and maybe if somebody is watching out there who has a background in psychology or something to kind of weigh in on when that threshold is, I'm certain there is a bright line or a threshold out there where if you cross this line, then yes, we're talking about mental illness or mental instability. We're talking about an abnormality, and we do need to deal with this by some means, preferably by treating the condition or what have you. Try to steer the person back towards what most of society considers normal. I don't know what those boundaries typically are, but I would imagine they are related to harm. Where if a person is going to harm themselves
like cutting
or
body
others,
parts off?
But is that really harm? Is that harm? Is that harm? If a person says, I am uncomfortable with my gender,
I'm uncomfortable with my
maybe
arms and I
it's
wish
harm.
to be I'm uncomfortable with my arms and I wish to be an amputee.
Maybe it's harm to leave certain body parts on when you don't feel that body part belongs there.
But okay, so I don't feel my arms belong there and I wish to be an amputee. Is that harming myself? Removing my arms? Am I going?
Well, your arm has a lot more utility than other parts.
Maybe you're not using it right. Sorry. Sorry. Oh my gosh, the pastor.
Who's
was
the
there.
pastor here, right? My goodness.
Oh my gosh.
Once again. But no, the arms have significant utility. They deal with your ability, your mobility, your ability to get around.
So
It's
so the
preferable to have
so
two
the
arms.
ability to reproduce is not a functional utility in the human being.
It's
choosing to lose your ability to reproduce is not harming yourself.
our ability to reproduce is a limited time function anyway. It does not exist when we are very young. We lose it as we get older, particularly women reach menopause. And that simply is how it is. Not having arms, not being able to carry things and open doors for yourself and stuff like that.
Who are you to say that? Who are you to say that? Who are you to say that?
I think that's reasonable to say that. To say that
I think
your
it's
arm has a lot more
I think
use
it's
than
reasonable to say it's abnormal to medically and surgically change your gender. That seems like
wait.
reasonable
How, you're not changing. According to you, we're not changing the gender.
Okay.
According to you,
There's
gender
there's
is hardwired into the
and
DNA.
And it is. So they're simply cutting
So
off
all
body
we're doing is cutting off an appendage.
or multiple appendages, depending if you're going one way or the other.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, some people have to have body parts removed for various health reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can have breast cancer, for example. A
Yeah.
woman can have breast cancer. I think that's may have been what you meant by multiple body parts.
Well, I'm saying a female transferring to a male, they'd be cutting off two parts. They'd be having a double mastectomy.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm a little slow on the engineering here. But I'm like,
Apparently
how
you
many
weren't a
parts
plumber.
are we cutting?
Yeah.
But you know, historically, I mean, people have, we've had eunuchs in the past, right? A eunuch is a person who has their male sexual parts removed.
So you're justifying.
Well,
no. You're justifying making people eunuchs?
The reason why that was done was for cultural reasons and politics, and
it was done to slaves. People didn't. I mean, some may have chosen to do that.
It was popular in Asia, in China in particular.
And the idea was make the person a eunuch. That way you can trust them with your concubines.
Right.
So
that was different. But I think doing that against a person's will is unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if a person isn't choosing that, that's abuse. That's a terrible thing.
So help me out with this, because I am actually not familiar with the phrase that Josh Gunderson. There are also hermaphrodites. Help me with that, and I'm going to check the meat. As you're talking about that, I'm going to check the meat. So I don't know if that is a bad reference or not, but
I think that is a person with both parts. I believe that's what that is. And in that case, again, the brain is going to tell you how you identify or what you are. Your brain is going to tell you if you're attracted to men, women, both, or not at all. There are people who don't have sexual attractions at all. I guess in that case, where you're dealing with both body parts, I would support whatever is in the best interest of a person's mental health. So if having surgery done and removing one of those parts, then by all means. Because again, I draw the line when we're dealing with harm, and if we're not dealing with harm, then live and let live. Let people do what they will as long as they harm none.
How much self-harm should we limit?
Is it self-harm though?
Hold on. How much self-harm should we limit, and then how do we define self-harm? You obviously define self-harm as you would not let somebody cut off both of their hands because you feel that is removing too much utility, is the word you use. Mm-hmm. So you consider that too much self-harm to allow someone to do. Why is that? Is it just utility? Is that all that it is? That's going to define harm? How are you going to define harm and as it pertains to self-harm?
I think harm would be something that would impair your ability to function and normally on a day-to-day basis.
Reproduction, affecting the sexual reproduction of a person.
That's not a day-to-day thing. It's not an everyday thing. Something that would shorten your lifespan.
Your hair. Oh, sorry, there you go.
I got a critter or a leaf?
No, it's like a leaf. I think
it's your ashes.
Like ash.
Great. You're dumping ashes on my head. So I think that, harm, I would identify harm as something that would substantially impair your ability to function on a day-to-day basis, such as, cutting off an arm. Whereas cutting off a sexual organ, particularly one that you do not use or are not interested in using, isn't necessarily harm. And if removing that enhances or improves your mental stability and actually contributes to you being a happy, functioning, productive member of society, and that's your choice to do that, and we find a physician who is willing to assist you, then by all means proceed. Who am I to stand in the way and tell you no?
Interesting. Josh Gunderson said that they would do that. Buddhism and Hinduism would have done that to tame their sexual desires, to focus more on
their meditation, their practice.
And so it was a way of medicating. Interesting.
But then at the same time, you have things like female genital mutilation, which is absolutely horrible. And
hold on. What if they choose it?
If a person is choosing in pursuit of their religious devotion, who am I to say no? Okay. But the problem is, as it's being practiced, in my understanding, is you need a plate, man. It looks like supper is done in the middle of the show. But I forgot what I was going to say. In a lot of cases, you're dealing with female genital mutilation. We're talking about people who don't have choice. We're talking about adolescents, things like that.
Or even circumcision.
Right, and that's another issue that is certainly subject to debate, because a lot of parents now are choosing to not do it because they see it as a form of bodily mutilation, and it's debatable as to whether or not it produces a net benefit. I know that a generation ago, and when we were born, it was standard practice, virtually universally done. But today, opinions on that are changing.
Yeah.
So
can you carry these in and put aluminum foil over the top of them, please? Yeah. I'm asking our producer to...
Scott is asking the producer to help out in the kitchen.
It's got to be warm under the center, but it should be fine on the
Talk about double duty there. So we've got 2 racks of ribs ready to go.
Yes, if you want to join us, see. I wouldn't exactly call them barbecue skills. I'm making do as the best that I can. Oh, there's my alarm saying I need to take the meat off. Which I did. So yeah, I have no idea if I'm any good at barbecuing, but a friend of mine gave me this barbecue years ago, and he said you should try it, and I'm like, okay. And then I tried it one time, and I'm like, I can actually do this.
Well, they seemed to cook pretty quick, didn't they? Were they only on there for 30 minutes?
Yeah, the ribs will usually cook really fast because there's not a whole lot of meat on there, and if you do it right,
it's like your arguments. Yeah, it's not a whole lot of. Oh, okay. I cooked them up real fast. I couldn't resist.
Wow, that was okay. I hold on. Josh, can you help me? I got a knife in my back that's twisted a little bit. Can you kind of pull it out? Yeah, thanks a lot on that. No.
So, what's the hang up now? I would argue that unless people are causing harm, if parents are showing love to their children, if the children that they are raising up turn out to be healthy, happy, and productive offspring. I even did a little research today, and I have from Cornell University, what does a scholarly research say about the well-being of children with gay or lesbian parents? Mm-hmm. They evaluated 79 scholarly studies. So these are 79 studies, and 75 of those studies concluded that the children of gay or lesbian parents fare no worse than other children. So
maybe there's no difference.
Maybe there's not. I think the difference is caused by things like love, care, attention. Are you involved in your child's school? And I'm not just talking about I go to all the ball games. No. Is your kid doing all their homework?
Keep preaching. I'm going to put the corn on.
Is the kid doing all the homework?
Hey, Dad, thanks, Josh. Josh is backing me up. He said that was a low blow.
All right. I apologize. I just couldn't resist. So there you go. But, I don't think that how parents prefer to gratify themselves in the bedroom should have a bearing on whether or not they produce happy, productive, loving well nurtured, well put together children, you know?
But I'm going to come back with someone who is choosing to mutilate their body in an attempt to say that what is biologically factual is wrong. I think is a sign of a clear sign of some sort of mental instability.
Well, you can have that opinion, and the official verdict is going to be left up to the doctors, to the psychologists, the experts. One of the issues I have is how much of this opinion is informed by heteronormative culture, which is, I think you understand what I mean by that, right? And what I mean is I'm talking about how everything in our society.
I believe what you're trying to say is you're trying to infer that how all of nature has been designed.
Our culture has
all
been
of
constructed.
Nature, how all of nature, how nearly everything in nature is separated by male and female.
What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
Everything
because homosexuality exists in nature,
right? But I'm just saying not by, again, it's an abnormality. There are abnormalities.
Male seahorses give birth.
There are yes, of course.
Okay.
So you have one example in all of nature. Good job.
Oh,
Way
I'm
to
sure.
go.
I'm sure
one
there's
example
more than that.
But what I'm saying is that even in plants there are male and female parts in plants. That it is part of nature that there is what's needed from male and what's needed from female for reproduction.
There's pollen and there's seeds.
Yeah.
And
So
on,
there are male parts and there are female parts that are needed for the reproduction for the further existence of that species. That is designed in nature, and that's how nature works. Outside of that is an abnormality.
Yeah,
that's clearly medical, biological. That's clearly.
Is there harm?
Biological.
Is there harm? So when I'm okay. So if there's no harm, then it's none of my business. Okay. That's my position. If having same-sex parents, or if dad wants to wear a dress around the house and play mom, and mom wants to wear pants and play dad, or what have you, or whatever, as long as there's no harm being caused, to me it's absolutely irrelevant. It comes down to the question of harm. If there's harm taking place, then yes, we want somebody who is an expert to be in there to look after or to help with that kid, whatever that means.
Okay, so what about how this person's actions are affecting others? How this person's actions may be affecting
Can you give me an example?
How the actions of a parent having surgery done in an attempt to change their gender, which cannot be done, but in an attempt to change their gender, having surgery, how are those choices affecting the children? Like even young children of them. How could you be bringing harm if you are displaying a possible mental instability and raising your children in that? Could you be bringing harm to those children?
If you are bringing harm to the children, then again, I'm going to want a doctor or someone to be involved to look after the children. Obviously, the kids are paramount, folks.
And Steve Ratliff brings up something about that, about children that are being raised by a single mother only or no father in the home. And we talked a little bit about that and in the crime statistics, and that he brings up that it's a very common thing that a single that absence of fathers is, if not one of the most identifying factors of people becoming criminals. That behavior is tied to the absence of fathers in the home. But I don't know that we're necessarily discussing that as far as gender. I'm more talking about the idea of the general idea that gender is fluid. The general idea that someone can choose their gender is what I'm mostly addressing. So I see that comment that Steve did, but I wasn't framing the discussion towards that direction, but more towards the idea of, is gender fluid, or is considering gender to be fluid, that you can go back and forth.
Be.
Is that mentally unstable? The idea that gender is fluid, that you can actually change your gender.
I think it's probably even more common than we know. One of the questions I want to pitch at you, mostly out of curiosity, I'm not going to make you answer it now, but I want to ask you this. Would you prefer, Scott, that a child have a single parent upbringing, or have a gay parent upbringing where there's two moms or two dads? So I don't know if Scott wants to field that. Yeah, I think it's a great question too.
And I should not avoid that question. That's a question that I should look directly into and be honest. Actually, you probably can't hear me right now. Hold on a second.
Scott is saying he shouldn't avoid the question. He thinks that's a good question. It might be one he needs to think about for a second. I think it's an important question. So the question again is, would you prefer that a child be raised by a single parent or that a child be raised by two parents who are gay?
From a secular perspective, I think from a secular perspective, I would have to say that it'd be better for two parents no matter what. Because I think, from a secular perspective, just statistically speaking, that if criminal activity comes from a lot of single parents or specifically no father in the home for male criminals, then I would say two fathers in the home might be good. Maybe no father and two mothers might still have the same effect as a single, because I don't believe that it's just that it's one parent. I believe it's the absence of a father figure. And again, coming back to this being Father's Day and gender roles,
back to heteronormative culture,
biological.
So
culture,
maybe
yes.
we can fix this if we do away with heteronormative culture by identifying and discarding some of these biases that require one of the people in the household to have a certain body part in order to prevent the kid from being a criminal.
Again, I don't believe it's the body part. You're going back to the body part because that's the most identifiable thing.
So two moms, if one of the moms is more masculine and somehow imparts the correct values, right?
Possibly.
It's really about the values is what it is. It's not about
values,
masculinity.
but
it's not about body parts. It's not about sex or preference. It's about values,
I
correct?
believe it's about gender roles. I believe that boys need to see how a man should treat a woman properly.
Whoa.
That girls need to see how you don't.
How about treat all people properly?
Right, but I'm just saying, it's important for.
I mean, there's a difference between old school chivalry. You know, old school chivalry, the man will open the door for the woman, right?
Yeah, my boys need to see that I don't yell at my wife, I don't beat my wife, I don't hit my wife, I don't treat her bad, I don't make fun of her.
Scott,
I tell her
if you
she's
were gay,
beautiful in front of them.
But Scott, if you were gay, wouldn't those also apply then to your husband in that case? Shouldn't your kids see that you don't beat your husband, that you don't scream and yell at your husband, that
I think
you
it's
take
important
care of
that
your
they see
husband?
how you treat the opposite gender.
How about the same gender? Why not? How about the same gender?
How do you mean?
Well, just like I was saying, let's say you were, homosexual, a gay two dads. Shouldn't your children then see that you don't yell at, scream at, abuse, or otherwise treat poorly your husband? Scott's buying time with the corn back there. Yeah. But yeah, I don't see why the body part makes such a difference. I don't understand the obsession over the body part. For me, it's all about the outcome. Is the kid taken care of? Is the kid growing up in a loving environment? Is the kid having a positive life outcome? Are they becoming a positive, contributing, healthy, and happy member of society? That is all I care about. I don't care about the parenting situation. I care about the outcome, because there are so many different possible parenting situations out there, so many different permutations of a family.
But what if studies, what if, and I was completely unprepared for this, is my bad, but I know that there are...
prepared for that barbecue.
Yeah, that there are, and we'd have to find them. I believe that there are studies that lists, not necessarily in order, but show that a mom and a dad is better for child upbringing than two moms, two dads, than one mom, than one dad. I believe that there are studies out there that show it. I don't have it, so I'll have to
and I believe that my 75 of 79 studies, which, by the way, that was published by Cornell University, the Public Policy Research Portal is where you can find it. It's called whatweknow.inequality.cornell.edu. I think, to me, that outweighs. If it were somehow true that the traditional nuclear family were better than, let's say, a gay family or what have you, if the scholarly research supported that, I can't argue with that because I'm not a scholar. And so I'm going to tend to prefer what the scholarly research says. However, in my understanding, the difference between all of those is so marginal that it's really no difference at all. So in order for me to get on board with saying, hey, you know what, we should always strive to have the traditional heteronormative mom, dad, 2 kids, dog name, Spot, so on and so forth type of family, you would have to demonstrate that the difference between that and Adam and Steve having a kid and loving that kid or what have you, you would have to demonstrate that the outcome is sufficiently different to get me on board with that. Otherwise, as far as I know, as far as Cornell University has found, there's not a significant difference, and it's okay. So if you're 2 moms, if you're 2 dads, love your kid, take care of your kid, and as long as you're doing your job as a parent, it's none of my business.
Again, Josh, you're asking LGBT and everything like that. I'm not talking about sexual preference. I'm talking about people who are actually trying to change their gender. So I'm not bringing into, he's asking, like, how do people choose their gender? Guys generally understood that LGBT is something that people feel is innate. I'm not talking about sexual preference. LGBT refers to sexual preference.
And if you're talking about changing your gender, like, dad suddenly wants to become mom.
And having surgeries to do that, I feel is a different thing than just simply, I have a preference for.
I don't have a problem with that, especially if it makes a person happier and healthier. The only time I would have a concern with that is if it's somehow going to adversely affect their children who might be in the middle of upbringing, let's say the kids are teenagers. Gotcha. That's going to be an issue. But I would think that is an issue that the parent, if they love their kid, is going to take into consideration before they decide to make that transition. Otherwise, they might say, hey, I'm going to wait to make that transition until my children are adults.
Because society shows us that parents are always making the best decisions for their kids.
Well, they don't always, but I think they should. And, gay parents or parents who want to be a different gender, what have you, have no monopoly on bad decisions. Heterosexual parents make terrible decisions all the time. Yeah. So, again, that's a non-unique argument, as we would say in debate.
Steve Ratliff, thank you for doing the research for me. WashingtonTimes.com, 2012 study, children fare better, traditional mom and dad family. So there's a link in the Washington Times. We'd have to look it up and see what that says. But I get what you're saying, that
75 out of 79 studies.
But again, I haven't seen those.
And also,
you could easily say that there's been 500 school shootings because somebody fired a gun at somebody and the bullet happened to hit a school, so they classify that as a school shooting. I don't know what those 79 studies are saying. But
well, I would imagine it's pretty substantial if Cornell University is going to publish it.
Again,
you don't like the conclusion, so you want to kind of doubt on it.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
So
yeah.
But here's the thing. That's what I should do.
That's
right?
how bias works, right?
Right, but that's what I should do, right? Or
well,
should I
should
take it at face
critique
value?
it? No, you should critique it.
Okay, then that's what I should do.
But at the same time, at the end of the day, if you're seeing consensus,
you notice that you didn't critique it.
If you're seeing scientific,
hold on, am I right?
75 out of 79 studies is consensus.
Right, but you didn't critique that.
It's like when science says this is a thing, and half of America says no, it's not.
No. What I'm saying is, that's one source saying that there are 75 out of 79. Did you go and look at all 75 out of 79? Did you critique it, or did you take the one source at its face value?
I'm here at your barbecue.
Right,
no,
so
I'm not at the library.
That's what I'm saying. Since you agreed with it, you chose not to critique it.
Do you think Cornell University would fake this?
I don't know. I believe that they... No, I don't think that they would fake it. But, hold on. I don't think that they would fake it. Is that Cornell University, or is that somebody reporting on what Cornell University said?
This is Cornell. It's Cornell.edu,
okay.
So it is Cornell University.
It is Cornell University, so that does lend a little more credibility.
And it has their seal and so on, so that's not just bandied about carelessly.
Right, good. So, but what I'm talking about is, it's the idea of, yes, I can show these studies and factually say, well, this, and this, and be leaving out other things, but still be factual and saying these things here, but leaving out a bunch of other stuff. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
So that's the part that I'm talking about critiquing. So Josh is showing us that we are at 49 minutes. I thought that this would probably be a shorter one than normal, and it has been the longest one we've ever done because I kept going back and forth on
well, there's certainly a lot more room for discussion in the comments.
Josh says, "Ha ha! No, you should read it." I don't know if that's Steve Ratliff.
Well, I
One or
should.
yours?
Did Steve put the link in the comments?
Yes, he is. So,
Good.
yes,
I'll
he
be
did.
able to look at that and reply
I
to
just
it
don't know
later.
if Josh is replying to Steve's link or replying to any other links. So we'll let that.
Well,
but we're
when anyone puts links in the comment,
we can keep
that's
commenting.
something we should
Yes,
do the
because
courtesy
then we
to
can keep
click on it
commenting. Comment,
and look into it.
share, post,
Yes.
add on to this, post your own links. Do my job. Yeah.
Well, no, part of the whole show is inviting you to join
Yes.
us, because we want you folks out there to also have these discussions with your family, friends, and neighbors. We want you to talk about more important things than just the weather or the sports scores.
Yep.
Sports ball isn't everything, folks.
Yeah.
We also want you to do research and kind of raise that bar.
Baseball. Who cares about those?
Because what happens is when people start talking about ideas, when we start having intelligent discussions,
Yep.
when we start looking at evidence to inform our opinions, society undergoes a change. We want to change the world that we live in. The way that we change it is by changing ourselves and how we approach problems and controversies and topics that are sometimes uncomfortable and unpleasant to talk about.
Yep.
But need to be discussed, rather than burying our head in the sand like an ostrich, which, by the way, they don't really do that, but whatever.
Well, thank you for joining us for A Valid Answer. We're on kerncast.com every Sunday night at 5 o'clock. We might be adding some more episodes. Maybe, let us know if you want to hear more of us. Maybe sometime in the evenings during the weeks. We'll see if we can expand the show a little bit. If you guys have topics you'd like us to talk about,
Absolutely.
post them to A Valid Answer on Facebook, or you can send a valid answer at gmail.com. Send us that email. We can have different discussions. Please keep commenting. Keep the conversation going online. Thank you for joining us
Keep
here
us
in my
honest.
backyard.
Go at us.
Go at us.
Go
keep
at
us,
me.
Keep us
Come
honest.
at me. Come at me, bro.
And then for those of you who are on my side, do my research for me, because apparently I'm not very good at what I'm doing. So, but I was able to fake being able to barbecue. So we're going to eat some ribs. If you know where I live, come on over. Until next time, it's been A Valid Answer with Scott and Marshall. See you guys.
Thank you.